Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Del Giorno, Vice President for College Advancement, and I'm pleased to welcome you all this evening, alumni, parents, students, faculty, staff, and friends, to the historic Decatur House for our special program titled The Message and the Messenger, the 2016 Race for the White House.
Following political trends has always been my post specialty, and for 36 years, they've done it independently, scientifically, and accurately. MIPO means a great deal to Marist for a variety of reasons. First of all, the program has provided the institution with great notoriety because of the quality of the work that is done there. And recently, of course, great partnerships with NBC News, the Wall Street Journal, the McClatchy News Service, and recently Telemundo. We're pleased to have such great partners as that.
Chuck, I'd actually like to throw the first question to you, and recognizing that neither demography is destiny or the curse of the third term is foolproof, and there's lots of arguments the other way too. Who's going to have the tougher time? The Democrats holding on to Obama's coalition, or the GOP convincing everybody that we really need change and to manage to have a different course right now?
Well, first, let me just thank you guys, thank Marist, and thank Dr. Murray, everything. It is a very easy partnership for NBC News to have. It's a very proud partnership. I know there's a lot of alumni in the room and parents of alumni. This is a very important partnership to us, and it's only made us look good. I think in this day and age of where it is amazing how we are so self-sorted, and this is a huge issue when it comes to figuring out how do we deal with polarization, how do we deal with this broken Congress, and all of these things. I think the demographic problem is the bigger problem. I mean, I think Hillary, if this is generic R and generic D has an advantage right now. Generic D just has an advantage simply because of the demographics, because of the way the Electoral College looks, because of where the states are growing and all this stuff.
When I was a student in college, there was the Republican lock.
That's right.
Okay, now we're into a Democratic lock. I'm not sure you totally buy into that.
Well, everybody has a lock until they don't.
That's
right. and so it is funny to go back and to look at the Republican lock from 1968 to 1988. And they're in places like California. I mean, they won California every election from 68 to 88. Illinois, Vermont, New Jersey, right? Nobody would put that in that category now. And I remember at the beginning of 2007 scoffing a little bit at this idea that the Obama campaign was going to be able to put some of these other states in play. Virginia, come on. North Carolina, you can't put North Carolina in play. Colorado, right? So I do believe, I agree with Chuck that we have gotten so, it's not only the polarization at the national level, but look, this is happening at the state and local level too.
This notion of demographics as destiny, I think one of the most interesting things happening now is the Republican Party, the candidates know that. They know they can't win with the same percentage of the white vote because it's declining. The question is whether they're going to win it on if biography is destiny in the key, which is the Marco Rubio message, and kind of the Ted Cruz message, I am a Hispanic, therefore I will get that vote, or the Jeb Bush message, which is on issues like immigration reform. And that seems to be a big fault line in the party. The Bush family knows issues do work. That it worked in Florida, worked in Texas, worked in national elections. And I think that'll make a big difference in how they do in that demographic.
Were you surprised after 2012 that they didn't move on immigration in just some form? I mean, I know we had the midterms coming up, and they felt pretty confident about that. But just in terms of their presidential politics,
I think 2012 was so overshadowed by what had happened in 2010 with the Tea Party, and that was still driving all the thinking in the Republican Party. Now there are more voices. Obviously, Jeb Bush is out there. Whit Ayers, who talks a lot about things like this, and he's advising Marco Rubio. I think there are different factors at play, and they also know they lost in 2012.
So the GOP field, how does this play out? I mean, they have some candidates who can fix this problem at least not in terms of legislation. They can actually just fix it just in terms of background and
But
characteristics.
I'm also interested, in addition to that, I mean, the Republicans usually have this, we fall in love with someone, he takes it wire to wire. I know you wrote about this, Susan, and that, the Democrats sort of eventually get in line sometimes. And now we've got the whole flip of that. Democrats united behind Hillary for all intents and purposes. And the question then becomes, can the Republicans fall in line? Will they, what's going to happen to this 20-field candidate?
Well, you'd think there can be a lot of divisions. We can't wait to cover the debates. Also, just to figure out how they stage the debates with all these candidates.
I think there's going to be arena seating. I've been looking at stadium seating. I was like, literally, you'll have 2 tiers,
Yeah.
and it'll be fun.
We're going to have 20 journalists tonight.
And what it'll be
just
is
to see.
everybody will have a buzzer.
Yeah.
And you throw out the question, and it's like, first one, you get the answer.
I think it
Right.
But
it'll improve viewership.
Oh, my
However-
God, the ratings would be through the roof on
And
it.
there'll be some divisions over that, but I'll tell you, there's one great unifier for the Republican Party, and her name is Hillary Clinton, right? So once they choose a nominee, whoever emerges from this process, I think that the Republican Party will unite behind that person. The question are, can you expand the Republican Party to get to something like 50%?
Can I just push back on that point? When has that ever worked? The Republican Party, whenever it is obsessed with Clinton, it was so successful it got Bill Clinton 2 terms. Obsessed with hating on Obama, it was so successful it got Obama 2 terms. I think if they go down this road of just making the whole thing about hating Hillary,
Yeah.
I think
They
it's
can
going
make it
to.
all
They
about
will
hating Hillary.
successfully.
But
They will
you know- but-
successfully elect Hillary Clinton president of the United States.
But one thing that happens once you settle on a nominee is that person then defines the party, right? And that person will have incredible power to say, this is where we now stand on immigration. They don't have to pass it through Congress. They can articulate it in a campaign and go a long way. And that person can be not obsessed with Hillary Clinton. But the idea of Hillary Clinton, it seems to me, is a huge unifying factor for the Republicans generally.
Not strategically. I think we're going to see less of Bill Clinton than we saw in 2008. But how does Hillary Clinton, is being the first female president enough of a change for her to put before the electorate? Or is it all
I got to
still-
tell you, the Clinton campaign's theory of the case is it has to be.
Yes.
I'll be honest. Like they say, the gender thing is the #1 motivator among millennials. Millennials view electing the first woman president as historic and what they want to be involved with. Change. They say her gender is the future, that's how she projects herself as that. So it's basically more Hillary, less Clinton, right? I mean, it's sort of, now how she pulls that off, she's got a I think Bill Clinton's a bigger problem than Barack Obama.
I think the opposite.
In this respect.
So switching gears, Barb alluded to money. Let's talk a little. What's the over and under on $5 billion this time?
Under.
Barely.
It depends what look here. Obama, just without super PACs. I always love telling this to people because everybody talks super PAC. Without super PACs, raised and spent $1.5 billion. Mitt Romney raised and spent $1 billion. So there's $2.5 billion. In 2008, Obama raised and spent $750 million. So he doubled his total. John McCain was somewhere around $450 million, I think. So he doubled. So if you go just by that, then yes, we're going to hit $5 billion. I mean,
Without super PACs.
I'm just telling you. Sorry, buddy.
I don't know how much money Sheldon Adelson has. We know what the Koch brothers are planning on spending. I think a very interesting thing that's happening right now, because so many of the candidates are spending so much of their time with contributors, not voters, like Ted Cruz, who rallied against Loretta Lynch in the Senate today, then didn't stay for the vote because he went to a fundraiser. And Jeb Bush obviously is looking for that huge dollar figure. I was in the room in '99 in California when George W. announced his first quarter fundraising figure, and there was actually a gasp from reporters.
Tell them what the number was, though.
It was 31 or 33 million.
It sounds so nothing.
I know.
He raised
Pocket change.
$31 million in like 3 months, and it had never been done before.
It changed the race.
It did, and now, of course, $31
That's
million.
clearly what Jeb wants to do with anywhere between $100 and $200 million. But it won't change the race this time because everything's different, because there are super PACs, because there are unlimited contributions, because Sheldon Adelson from Las Vegas can finance one candidate like Newt Gingrich.
in our generation, it's the economy stupid, although '08 was about foreign policy until the crash in October. Talk a little bit about, is this going to be about the economy? Is the message going to be about foreign policy? Is the message going to be about social issues?
Yes.
And what the Supreme Court may or may not do with gay marriage in the next couple. So I just want to throw that out.
And healthcare.
And healthcare. I mean, where are we going message-wise this time around?
Well, and you've heard me say this, because we've polled on, I think the question of marriage is the biggest issue in the country, changing our politics. ABC Washington Post today had it at 61% support for gay marriage. It is changing both political parties.
I look at it, there's three giant issues. Domestic anxiety. So I throw that as economic anxiety, but it's more than that, right? It's the anxiety of like, where's America going? Where's our economy going? There's global insecurity and uncertainty. There's the chaos of this feeling of chaos. And then there's the hopelessness about the political system. If you look at the way we have gone with elections, is that there's no longer about one issue or two issues. Everybody is micro-targeting. We don't have the same conversation anymore.
But I think that was a very smart analysis of three big, kind of the sense that people are worried about, and that if you could address in an effective way the feeling that the country's gotten off track, and the feeling that our politics has failed, I think it's part of that. You would have a really effective campaign. I do, micro-targeting, I agree. You look at some of the stuff just directed at yourself, and you can see how micro-targeted you are. But I guess I do think that a candidate who articulates an approach that makes sense on these big issues has a big advantage.
I tell people that Anthony Kennedy and Justice Roberts are the two most important governing bodies in American politics today.
I think that Republicans are actually hoping that the courts do something that they don't necessarily agree with, but they want them to do, which is
on both
cases.
Get rid of
on both cases. No, which is make gay marriage legal. We don't have to talk about it. Good, court's done. Okay. It's done.
Ended.
And to not overturn the mandate. Because if they do, then that forces every single Republican governor and every single Republican candidate to say, oh, okay, so those 10 million people in Florida now that don't have health care anymore, that's okay? So they don't want to have to deal with that either.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pete O'Keefe. I'm a very proud Marist grad. And I also had the good fortune of working on the McAuliffe campaign in 2013. And so my question, I want to pick on what Amy said. We share a campaign manager in common, Robbie Mook, with Hillary's campaign. And I want to pick up on the gender gap, because one of the things that we learned in that campaign is that if you focus on women, there are tremendous outcomes politically that can occur. And I didn't hear that, as much in the conversation today, but if the campaign really does get that gender gap up into 12, 13, 14, there's a tsunami that's created that the Republican nominee just can't withstand. So I'd love to hear the rest of the panel's thoughts on the gender gap.
It'll work best if Hillary gets the kind of opponent that Terry McAuliffe got in his race.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there was only a gender gap because Ken Cuccinelli was unelectable for a lot of moderate women, and moderate Republican women, and that was the issue there. Terry McAuliffe would not have won that race against the Republican lieutenant governor. Okay, so you can't. No, but that's the point. The candidates matter.
You talked a lot about chaos and people needing security during this election, so now media comes into play. So do you think apps like Meerkat and Periscope and just keeping in touch with the public at all will give the public a sense of security, and will these apps be revolutionary for this campaign?
Explain what this is.
All right, Meerkat and Periscope are these where you can literally live stream to your Twitter feed. The impact that it has on the campaign, I think, is going to be interesting, and I think it is, you're going to have some campaigns that are going to be afraid of the viral moment and basically be so preoccupied with organizing their events to prevent viral moments from happening that their events are going to stink.
They already do.
And then there's going to be the candidate that does what John McCain 2000 in this media environment, not John McCain 08, but John McCain 2000 in this media environment, totally unafraid and basically saying, you know what, I'm going to be on the record constantly. Basically, that has takes the Meerkat and Periscope and says, fine, I don't care. And is willing to sort of run the spread offense of media relationships, which meaning, yeah, I may make a flub over here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'm going to do 7 more interviews on the road, and it'll trump that and whatever, and I don't care, and I'm open and accessible.
I think there's an interesting dynamic starting already, and it's a difference, which is the Republican candidates are willing to talk to the media and take questions, and so far Hillary Clinton is not. And the best example, and I think it's an important thing to keep in mind, Rand Paul's first week of his campaign, by any analysis, went badly because he did interviews badly. But I will give him endless credit, because what did he do at the end of the week when he was barking at reporters? He went on Chuck's show and took more tough questions. We see a lot of these candidates, Republicans, taking questions every day from the press, at least those who apparently are confident of what they have to say, which goes to the idea of the candidate who is willing to go out and hang out like a John McCain and all.
No one has been accessible for a long time. I mean, I feel like 2004 was the last time that a candidate would come to the back of a bus and chat with reporters. That is not going to happen ever again. Not ever since the cell phone camera came.
Lindsey Graham will.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay.
I'm just saying. Lindsey Graham is the only candidate right now that
all these things have become, they're all sideshows. And they all know that there are 600 people in the room with their own cameras. Before there was any of these apps, there were the trackers, there were all the embeds from the news organizations. Everybody was already putting you on camera. And so that's part of what has become less fun about covering campaigns, is there is zero access to the candidate ever in an off.
I just don't think that's true. I mean, just the other day, Jeb Bush comes out and he after his talk, after he shakes hands with the voters, he takes questions. There's a scrum around him.
He's done it every time. Steve's absolutely right.
Okay, so he's going to come, but what's going to happen when he's on the
Jeb has done
trail?
this every time.
There's no bus anymore. I mean, we don't cover campaigns anymore by getting on a bus and following a candidate around, right? But there are ways in which candidates either answer questions or don't. And the smart candidates are going to figure out that they have to, or else they constantly are answering questions about why they aren't answering questions.
Early in my career, I had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Tim Russert and some of the things that I've done from a charitable perspective. Today, kind of Meet the Press, serving as its messenger, channeling the message. Can you talk about the importance of that in history?
The fragmentation of media. You know, one of the things that sort of there's the legacy of Meet the Press, and then there's the reality of the current media landscape. You know, and trust me, it is the thing that keeps me up most nights. I don't sleep well ever since I've gotten this job. Because on one hand, I want the show to be what Larry Spivak made it, what Tim Russert made it. And on the other hand, it is harder than ever to convince people that they should come on and face just normal, regular, tough questioning. It's certainly trying to keep the legacy and operate in this new fragmented time is certainly a challenge, and I just don't want to be the last moderator. That's what I always tell people. Like,
Favorite candidate you each for president covered, and who you would have wanted to cover but never had the chance? Sort of like early on.
Mine was George W. Bush in 99 and 2000, because he talked to me, I mean, personally. He talked to all the press corps, but 6, 7, 8, 9 interviews we had, my partner and I, with him. And in an interview, he was relaxed and comfortable, and particularly in the governor's office, where he put his feet up on the desk and talked about baseball.
You would have historically liked to.
I did not cover Reagan's campaign. Okay. I would have liked to have covered that.
Okay. Chuck?
This is going to be a weird answer. It was Kasich in 99. He was a lot of fun to follow around in those, because nobody else was going. And I was sort of working at a small publication that when we went on the trail. So John Kasich is he's also just gregarious. He'll talk to anybody. I'm with him. But I'm going to be specific. Reagan 76. That would have been the campaign. That would have been the campaign I would have enjoyed covering.
Well, 1980 was the first campaign I covered. I worked for Newsday, and I covered Reagan. So I was the most junior reporter at Newsday, and I was, Newsday was not the main media outlet covering Reagan, but I was with Reagan much of the time in '80. And I would say that what it taught me was not to make assumptions that you actually know what's going to happen or what candidates are like. And for who I would like to cover, I don't know. Abraham Lincoln, that would have been cool. Or
Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, right.
The Van Buren.
Yeah, Martin Van Buren,
We
absolutely.
need to bring back mutton chops. I think that's.
Yeah, that would be
The
good.
symbol, right?
I
The
think it
Seinfeld
would
symbol
be,
for the Van Buren boys.
Even though it was a campaign that ended in tragedy, I would have. I think the Bobby Kennedy campaign would have been really fascinating to have been a part of, and to the history of that. Would have been my pick, especially at that time. The person that I'm going to actually bring it to modern era, which is I've enjoyed right now covering Rubio in terms of, I just think he is a very intriguing candidate who, when I first met him, I thought sort of like what you're saying, like, I don't know if he has as much gravitas, he's kind of young, he doesn't really I don't know what he brings to the table, and he really has grown into this job, especially on foreign policy. And he also has an affableness about him. Like when I saw him most recently, I mean, he goes up and he talks to everybody, and that same thing. We're all kind of saying the same thing, which is candidates who are open and willing to talk to you.
Well, one of the things that Barbara and I think, enjoy the most, aside from those late night polls, is our interaction with such accomplished people like the four of you. And so I want to thank you for your friendship and our professional relationship as well over the years, and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with the gang today. So thank you very much.